Hello again, I'm Doug Smith, and welcome to the 25 January 2019 edition of Portsmouth This Week. Our special guest today is Ray Perry, the new Portsmouth Emergency Management Agency Director. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We know you took on the job of Town Emergency Manager after the sudden loss of John King, who did a lot for the program. Can you give us a little bit about your background? You're a native Aquidneck Island Newporter, I guess, right?
Yeah. Many years ago, I grew up in Newport and went to Rogers High School, graduated in '76, and so it was a bicentennial. That was kind of neat being around during that time.
Yeah, well, the big ships.
Worked down at Christie's restaurant when I was in high school and stuff. But I went in the Air Force right out of high school, and then I switched over to the Rhode Island Air National Guard and went to URI and got a fisheries degree and one in geography and marine affairs. Did a little bit of fishing, mostly worked on yachts and stuff, but then I decided I better get a little bit more stable job. So I applied several times for the Coast Guard and finally got accepted into officer candidate school. And so I was in the Coast Guard for over 28 years and got to serve in all over the place, East Coast, West Coast, did work in London, South America, Central America, Arctic.
Now, where is the Coast Guard OCS, just out of curiosity?
Right now it's in New London. It was down in Yorktown, Virginia then,
okay.
But now they've moved it over here to where the Coast Guard Academy is.
Okay, so it's kind of all
co-located. Yeah, it's all co-located there, yeah.
Okay, so, you know, being in the Coast Guard, you were doing a lot of emergency stuff anyway, I think. Tell us, before we get into the way the EMA is organized and structured and that kind of stuff, I wonder if you could talk about the current emergency we have on the island, which is the natural gas, the gas pipeline issue.
Right.
And what's going on and where we are on that.
Yeah, we're, you know, they're actually working on the pipe here in Portsmouth, but we've been very fortunate in that, you know, none of our local residents have been impacted. But obviously Middletown was impacted quite a bit. All of their houses actually should be back up and running and occupied within the next couple of days and stuff. So we're looking pretty good there. I'm working with them. I'm on the incident management team. We're actually operating out of a unified command down at Fort Adams. And so we've got a lot of different people down there. Newport was impacted tremendously. The incident commanders down there is actually Chief Brian Dugan and stuff, and he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, Newport's really fortunate. The island's fortunate to have him because he's really representing us all. But between him and Chief Faber out of Middletown, they're kind of acting as the incident commander. I was helping him as kind of their liaison officer. And then there's a National Grid person down there that forms that unified command. But we've got people down there from, you know, obviously, you know, Newport, fire, police, public works. Their IT experts are there from Newport. We always forget about them, but we can't stand up a command post unless we have those IT guys. So the IT people are down there in Newport helping us. Same thing with the Middletown fire, police, public works. We've got National Guard, Rhode Island EMA is down there. We've got Department of Health down there, Rhode Island Department of Health. They're behavioral experts because obviously we have a lot of special needs. You know, we're getting everybody out of all these houses. We've got to provide housing for them, so it gets pretty complicated. So we're working through that. State police are there. We have a lot of volunteer groups. Massachusetts is helping us out there, Northwest. Incident management team is down there, so they're real good. They kind of help you with the management process. It's good to have somebody come in when you have so many agencies coming together to kind of look at that. It helps things flow a little bit better, so they're down there. Wonderful volunteer groups. We have the FEMA CERT team down there, which is a civilian emergency response team. Providence Fire Department Cantina, that's a volunteer group, and they come down. We have fires in Newport here, and these are retired firemen who bought this truck, and they provide food free, and they come on scene and they help out residents. So we had that fire down in Common Fence Point where we had a couple of houses. They were right there and feeding anybody that needed to be fed. So that's a volunteer group. You know, Red Cross has been absolutely fantastic. We're really fortunate here. We've got Charlie Fitzpatrick, which is the coordinator of that, and then Carmela, who's our manager. And we were actually, as Portsmouth, we were being looked at as actually being the backup site. At one point they said, will you open up our school here as a shelter, because again, you guys have over 7,000 residents down there impacted, and we got to get them out. We had to get them out of there. But before I did that, I talked to the National Grid guys and Carmela, and they're just so professional, and they just knew how to measure and say, wait a minute, we don't need to go there yet. So so we were ready to help, but they made the right decision just from their experiences. So we're really lucky to have that talent there in the Red Cross.
Yeah, Carmelo's been on the show here before.
Right. Yeah. And then there's another team. A lot of people might not have heard of them. They're called Team Rubicon. And after the Gulf War, a lot of the military guys came back and they saw what happened in Katrina and all this, and they formed really a nonprofit organization, and they are highly professional. They come in, they're helping us. They're going to all the houses right now. Obviously, you've got people in the houses, and you can't just check on them once. You've got to keep checking on them, wellness and stuff like that. There's a lot of special needs people,
Yeah.
so that's what they're really focusing on there. So Chief Dugan and his team, they've got them working with them and helping them do that type of thing. So there's some there's some wonderful. We say in emergency management, when you move into the disaster phase, you can't. You're not successful unless you have volunteers. It's critical. That's not me talking. That studies have been on that.
Absolutely.
You need to have them. You need to have them coordinated. You have to have a good system. And we were talking about volunteers a little bit beforehand. We're putting a program in place here at Rhode Island EMA, and I've actually been talking. This incident is good from the fact that I got really close to Chief. Both the chiefs and a lot of the managers here on the island outside of Portsmouth, and we can't do it alone. We realize not one of our communities can do that alone. We move into a disaster. When something's bigger beyond the fire and the police department, and so. So we know that we need to work together, but we're working right now. I haven't pulled in a lot of volunteers since I've been here. I've been here for about 6 months. I've got some guys that really help me. I'm Rich Talipsky here. I got to do a shout out to a guy by the name of Chuck Kesson.
Chuck,
He's
an old friend.
Yeah, he helped that transition when John obviously passed away, and John was a fairly good friend of mine. We both live out in Common Fence Point, but when he left, a lot of knowledge went. And Chuck Kesson has been the guy. He's been every time I ask him, every meeting I have, he's there, and he's just kept me informed and stuff like that. So a strong shout out to him. I really appreciate what he's done to bring me up to speed on the local stuff here.
Yeah.
So that's been good.
So essentially,
yeah.
you're getting all the local folks are helping out. I presume the state EMA and
Rhode Island EMA is heavily involved. We have to do these we have to put our planning together. So technology is great. We're connected with them directly. So we're talking with them as we're developing our plans, and so all our objectives, our strategies, all the safety things that we need to consider. They've got all the people up in Rhode Island EMA. The director up there, Mark Pappas, he's been down. The governor's was down yesterday and stuff like that. So there's really good connectivity. We're fortunate in this incident. I mean, it's National Grid. But this isn't like a hurricane. What's a little bit different here is we have a party that is responsible for the response of this, and so they have to provide a management team, and they have to provide the funding for it.
Yeah.
And so that makes it easy for us. So anything we're asking for as far as the management of it, they're feeding all of us and all that stuff. I mean, you see what they're doing on the news and stuff, which there's a lot of harm that's been done from this response, obviously locally, and so they're taking pretty good care of everybody, I think, as far as what they can do right now. But even on the response side, it makes our response a lot better and easier because you have that capability. That is National Grid. They've been to the rodeo before on these things before, and so they know how to surge in and.
Well, we did dodge a
manage and
bullet
respond
during
with
this
it.
one by.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they're saying the cause of this thing was, you wonder, how did all this stuff come down to Portsmouth okay, but then in the onward things to Middletown and Newport. Anyway, it'd be interesting to find out eventually how this thing works
There's
out.
an investigation going on. There's an Office of Pipeline Safety, and so any pipes that are moved interstate, they're going to come down and they're going to look at it. There's also a state counterpart for the interstate type of thing, so there's pipelines. So that we keep that separate from the response because we're all in it together. The National Grid guys, we all have the same response priorities, objectives. We want to save people's lives and protect property and do all that stuff. So we're all working together to that end. There's going to be an investigation piece afterwards and all that sort of stuff, and they're going to look at that. But our objective right now is just get people back in their houses and save their pets. And Bristol's been helping out, as you know, as a part of league. National Park Service. We are actually out at we're out at Fort Adams. We moved our command post out there because you need a big place. And National Park Service has been great. We're actually at Sail Newport right now, the sailing center.
Yeah,
They just opened up the doors. Come on in, we'll do everything. And they're providing all the IT support.
Yeah.
So Newport County Chamber of Commerce, you've seen their things, but they've reached out. They've talked to us about you know, they're just getting all the companies together, help feeding
Yeah.
us and all that sort of
Well,
stuff, and providing other businesses, because a lot of businesses are, you know, the impact isn't just the houses, there's a huge
Yeah.
economic impact, as you know.
You know, I
And
think
so that
I think
all has to
we're,
be
as a
supported.
community, though, the whole island, we've had times before when the bridges closed, for example, during a hurricane,
Yep, yep.
where we come together pretty well, and certainly in the case of this, give a shout out to all those volunteers that are out there helping out, being away from their families.
Absolutely,
helping. Let's talk quickly now. We could talk about this the whole time, but I want to talk about our own emergency management agency. Can you tell us how the EMA is sort of organized and set up and how you run it?
Yeah, we're expanding right now. Maybe it's to kind of understand what the job is of the emergency manager. My job is really to I have two things, well, three things really. Throughout day-to-day basis, I'm really here to manage risk, okay? So I'm looking across not just the response type of access, but, you know, protection, prevention, preparedness, mitigation type things and all that sort of stuff. So I help manage risk, and then I'm always planning for the disasters and stuff like that. I tell the fire chiefs and the police chief, I says, you know, you're really kind of you're a problem for me, because they're so good. When we call 911, all right, they go and they solve the problems for all our people and stuff like that, and they're always there, and they do a really good job at that. But I'm there for really the big event, when it goes beyond the capabilities, and we have to bring in and manage a lot of resources that we've probably never even seen before.
Yeah.
So my job is to build that management system, so to supplement us, so that when resources come in here, we can actually manage them. And so so that's my planning piece and stuff, and then during the response, help that all come together. Our management team right now, which is really good, and you mentioned it earlier, we, you know, before I got here, there was capability here, and one of that is that public information unit that is stood up in the EOC up above the fire department. And they're really there. They're not the 911 replacement for everything, but there's something that the public should know about. We have a number that'll be set up at the time of the event. You can call in, but it's also social media, so you can use any of your social media networks and talk to you're on there, and you talk to you guys, and that's real critical during all responses now. We want to hear what's happening out there with the public, what information is moving. We call it what information is actually getting legs that might be not correct, and so we have an opportunity to go in there and maybe correct it and stuff like that, but also so they have an official source that they can go and say, hey, is this really what's going on? And they're a huge asset to us. We have to build, I can't make response decisions, okay, and move a lot of resources until I have a good situational picture.
Exactly.
And the public is a key part of that right now. They feed us that information. They're telling us what's happening in their town, their community along the shoreline, and we'll feed that into the situation picture, and then I can decide what my response objectives are, and then from that move down to what resources do I have, what resources do I need, build that capability, and try to be as effective as possible.
Let's talk briefly, at least, about
that.
the EOC. People need to know that during an emergency, the Emergency Operations Center stands up, and it's in the upper floor of the fire department. And there are reps from the fire department, the police department, and town management periodically there as they, and then the rest of it is kind of a lot of volunteers doing these jobs. One of them is the IPI job, the Internet Public Information Unit, and that's the one that runs the Twitter, Facebook, blog stuff that goes out to people. But then another big part of that is, and we always are people. We're trying to think ahead a little bit. What happens if we lose, you know, connectivity with the internet or something? And we still have a really robust communications section of that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and obviously, you know, who's a better guy than to pull that together than John King? And so, and that's one, you know, I haven't done much with volunteers yet. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, because we're going in that direction. I'm going to tell you why I haven't, you know, pulled a lot of volunteers in yet. I've got a list of people who want to come in.
That's good.
Here's the bottom line on there. It's easy to bring in volunteers. It's hard to keep them.
Hard to keep them.
And so what we're working on, Chuck and Rich Talipsky and I said, let's put a program together first. Okay, and so we're actually looking in the end of February or March. I want to have a kind of like a public forum, and we're going to talk about a lot of the things that we're talking about here. This is what the emergency management system is. This is the risks associated with this. This is how we tear up from, you know, the day-to-day responses to standing up an EOC, to that EOC becoming a support unit, and we have to stand up a unified command, which is like what we're doing right now for this gas incident. And we're not, a couple of days ago, we were up at the Newport, we had it at the fire station, and they've got a much bigger room up there. That's not the capacity. Your emergency operations centers do not become the focal point of management. They become a support component. You need a much, much bigger building. I spent probably a half a day with state police and Rhode Island EMA looking for a place that was suitable. This was just 2 days ago when we went to all the hotels. Everybody was trying to help us out, but we knew we needed ourselves for like 2 weeks. So that's one thing that we're working for. We want to have a place that we're kind of in, that we can work out, and we can actually bring all these agencies. Our country has a tremendous amount of capability, and what the locals need to do, and this is what I'm here for, is to say, hey, when my capabilities are maxed out, I can't just call capability in here. I have to have a system to manage them. Okay, they'll come, but if I don't have that system to manage them here, then it doesn't work as well. So my job is to build that system. So we have our EOC, but that does not, if we move into a disaster phase, that's not the focal point of our response, and that's what I'm building. So next, I have to build that next layer. But you absolutely, we have a wonderful capability here. We have, you know, we have our radio operators basically there.
Ham radios.
Ham radio operators, and they're all volunteers.
When it all falls to
Right.
pieces.
In fact, this weekend, the Newport Radio Club, which I had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, because I don't want to lose that comms unit and that capability. And like you mentioned before, we need to get more volunteers in there. And they've already. I'm going to be with them this weekend. I've done it before. They've got their field day in Glen Park where they're having their annual training. Our team gets involved with that because they get training from an emergency response perspective as well. But they're going to be helping us out too. They're going to bring some. They've already committed some volunteers to us as well. And we're going to be in Glen Park this weekend actually on a national type of exercise doing our radio communication. So that is real critical to be able to, you know. The normal systems go down, the ham radios, the Aries guys, they have a great capability. And they have to be trained, so they're not just radio operators, but they have to be trained as emergency response radio operators. And that's what these guys are doing. That's a program that we have in place for them. So
Yeah, and
that's a coda to John King again. He's recognized on statewide as far as how capable our unit here is in Portsmouth, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I think particularly in the social media stuff, we jumped ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people started realizing how important it was.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned is training. A lot of these volunteer jobs needs to require some training.
Yep.
Some of this is online through FEMA courses, I guess, and then there are others that are kind of like specific to the job.
Position-specific training, right?
Yeah, but that comes with being a volunteer. You volunteer, you get that training.
Yep.
And I guess the other thing that I wanted to at least briefly mention is the part that Code Red plays in this whole system.
Right.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we've got, you know, like I said, if you go to the Portsmouth, Rhode Island website, our town website, you can hook up the Code Red. There's also another little link there so that if you can link into some emergency information notices and stuff like that. That's all part of a bigger notification system. Everybody really should be doing that. Just go on the website. Every family should be doing that. You're going to get it, whatever device you have, whether you're at your computer or you're on your phone, your cell phone, and it's going to pop up whenever there's an emergency alert that's going on there.
The nice thing is, speaking for experience, is that when the electricity goes out, your home phone may go out.
Right.
But usually cell phones are a little bit more robust for at least, you know, a longer period of time.
Yeah. And we have two other systems that are out there too. Those are the local things, like we said. We've got our public information unit, which is local here, and that's taking that social media and notification stuff that's out, and that's real important. And the Code Red is somewhat local too. There are other systems out there right now. We've got a whole new generation of emergency communication equipment coming in. In fact, at this response we're on right now, we have what we call FirstNet, and the governor approved this, so it's a national type of a system. And we were actually handing out the equipment during this response here. But that's for responder to respond to be able to communicate, okay? So that's a real good system, a much stronger system than we had before. And the other one is what we call the IPAWS, it's the Information Public Alert and Warning System. And I can get on that as an emergency manager and use mapping and send you charts and pictures to all the public, all the families. This is what's happening in your community. And that system has worked from the White House on down to my level, and and the fire departments, the chiefs and stuff like that, we can get on that, and we can do local notifications, and we can do pass all sorts of information, photographs, maps. So systems are, a lot of systems that are out there, but definitely for the public, definitely get on Code Red if you can.
And
if you
how do
have,
they-
if
how
you
do
have
people
people
do
in
that?
your, you just get on it. You can go to our website. You go to any emergency management agency website, any state and any town, and they will have a link there for Code Red. So you go onto the Rhode Island website, you go to the Portsmouth website, the Portsmouth Town Hall website, and it's there. There's an icon right there. It just says Code Red. Click on it. You just
Yeah.
walk through, and you're going to fill in your
And
information.
so then you get
They're
phone
gonna
calls
connect.
if there's
You
something.
get phone calls, pop-ups on your screen, on your computer screen, and so
Yeah,
on.
for
And-
some reason I'm
and
getting
things going on.
Middletown, so I had several of them the
Oh,
last
yeah.
couple of days.
Yeah. It's a good system. So.
Okay, so I guess what's interesting to me, I used to be a part of this IPI team.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, I see how the thing has all evolved and changing and getting better as we go through all these things. Let's talk about the key need here that moving forward people are going to see more of, and that's the need for volunteers.
Right.
What does it take? On the website it says not everybody is, would really want to be a volunteer, but there are a lot of people that like to help out their community. And can you talk a little bit about some of the requirements of being a volunteer?
No requirements for being a volunteer. There will be requirements for whatever position you want to hold. My wife is disabled. She has a lot of troubles right now, and we went up to the Red Cross and we stuffed envelopes, and she loved it.
Yeah.
So but I also need people who maybe are executives of different companies and stuff like that, and maybe they're retired, newly retired, and they've got that leadership ability. If they want to own a piece of the program, we're going to build different components here. I have, it was wonderful coming to Portsmouth here. Is when I got here, I started looking at the plans. Says who's doing what, and already up at Town Hall, it wasn't like the emergency management guys were doing the plans. Okay, Rich Talipsky did the pandemic, the MedPods plan. Gary Coswas that has this mitigation plan. That's perfect. Our building inspector right now, we were talking about, he went to a thing with me on resiliency. I want him, and he's all over. He wants to, we need to have a damage assessment team, okay? Well, all of those are going to have to need volunteers and stuff. So we're building a program. I've got a program together right now. We haven't launched it yet, but it's the introductory. Everybody's going to have to go through a certain level of training. But then after that, we have positions and functions that we're going to have to do. Capability. I have to build some current capabilities in certain areas. I know what I can surge in from the state level, from the regional and the national level, but I know what I need to do here because I've been training all this stuff. So I've been doing this for years. So we're going to build a capability and pull in volunteers to actually do that. Volunteers are extremely critical in the emergency management world. They fill the gap automatically. We know that. We do studies and stuff like that. When a disaster happens, things get done, whether they're organized or not. The public will fill the gap. By definition, by a disaster, it is beyond the local responders' capability. We only have so much capacity. And it's going to be a while before we can bring in all this other, regional and national capability. So we really want to build that locally, and we're going to do that thing. So I can use anybody. If somebody wants to volunteer for us, and they're saying, and the showstopper is, hey, I got to watch out for my family. I've got other issues. I don't know if I want to deploy during the response. That's perfectly fine. We're not responding every day. We're planning for the big thing. If you want to come and be part of that preparedness for it, and then you can't respond in the time, as long as I know that up front. And because there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of organization. You look at what's happening with this gas incident and all the little nuances associated with that. The more you prepare for that and you put systems in place. So the qualifications. Now, once we get somebody in a position, it depends on what you want to be. Like for instance, you want to be part of the damage assessment team, which is critical for me getting that situational picture. You want to be a situation unit leader who's going to draw that picture so we all have the same picture. Multiple agencies with multiple authorities, jurisdictions coming together and need to make decisions, and we all have to be in alignment. That's critical for me to have that situation. We can train you. I've got a lot of training in this. I'm an ICS, I'm an Incident Command System Instructor. I've managed Type 1's incidents. I was an incident commander for the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and I've been doing this for 40 years, so I've done policy in this. In fact, the part of the emergency manager, that position, that was something that I proposed at the White House right after 9/11 before DHS stood up.
Wow, so you got real credentials.
I was asked to go in and actually brief on ICS and then also build a nuclear preparedness system for the U.S. and put a proposal for that, and we brought all the agency heads together. That was one of the things as I put in there was we need to get this down to the local, and FEMA liked the idea. It didn't get implemented for a long time. They're starting to implement it right now. I was expecting it to be a highly paid position, but in that negotiation process with the locals, we only got so much money, so a lot of our emergency managers are actually, fire chief, double-hatted fire chiefs, and they're already busy to begin with and stuff. So Portsmouth, I think, is, I'd love to be here, and I think they're pretty good that they've got somebody that's dedicated to that and stuff. But going back to the training type of a thing, a lot of trainings out there, I know a lot of volunteers, what do they want? They want to give back to the community, all right? They want to own something, all right? They want to get training, they want to learn new things. If you're going to do into a specialty, you have almost all the same available training as I would have as a paid professional. I can get you down to FEMA, Emmitsburg, if you want to be in the damage assessment team, you want to be a situation unit leader, you want to do one of those different positions that we have. Emergency communications, okay? The state has schools that are free, there's things going on all the time. So if you're working for me, I can get you to that. Going down to Emmitsburg in Maryland, that's the National Emergency Training Center in FEMA, headquarters, FEMA's training center. It's also where the National Fire Academy is and stuff. And I go down there all the time. You get free room and board, you get free training. You got to pay for your transportation down there. You got to pay for the meals and stuff. So it depends on where you're at, and we're talking about a whole bunch of capability I need here, from stuffing envelopes to somebody who wants to own. One of the capabilities I want to build up is what we call a volunteer reception center, okay? But I need volunteers to manage the volunteer reception center. We've got that program, and we're not recreating anything. That how that's supposed to run is already there. So I need somebody to say, okay, make this happen, plug it in, do it locally. Here's the training, here's the guidance, here's the manual, here's the staffing that's recommended. And if you want to own that, you can own it. But so we have we never fire responders. We never fire volunteers. We might reassign them. But there's room. I don't care where you're at, what capability you're at, what period you want to work in making our community a little bit more resilient and stronger. And how often you want to do, it just depends. My job is to kind of weed out who's those people who really want to commit to it and run the management position.
Yeah, because the reality is, when the EOC stands up, there is a requirement for folks to be in there to help man it. In the IPI team, for example, but also for the emergency communications guys.
We're actually going through Chuck's right now, redoing, because the comms thing, they had a pretty good training program right now, and that's something I have already stand up. Again, I'm looking in February and March to have this meeting where I can start pulling people in, but we're redoing that whole training. So we've already got the introductory training package together, and then we'll
well that's great.
But
now
we'll do that for each different position.
The thing is, what can they do right now if they want to?
Now, there's a person
I'm
readiness
talking
thing,
about just the average guy in the street, not necessarily volunteers.
Right.
Volunteers, they could probably contact you, I guess.
Right, exactly.
But how do people sign up for the social media stuff, for example, so they get this automatically in their things? On your website, I know you have a link.
Right.
It's like, Portsmouth Emerge / Twitter or vice versa.
Right. And our website's been down for a little while. We had some administrative errors in getting access to that after John passed away. So I think we're fixing that up right now, but that'll be a great source to go to. But there are things to sign up just for information. The other thing too is, when we get into a disaster, which was I prepared for, it is a responsibility for the families to prepare for it. And there's a lot of resources out there. You go to FEMAready.gov, you'll have a link. If you go to our website, you'll have a link to that. If you go to the Rhode Island Association of Emergency Management Agency, you got a link to that. EPA, Centers for Disease Control.
We're out of time.
All those people have there's a lot of information on what the families need to do to prepare and to take care of their pets and to take care of their loved ones, the people with special needs. We've got to be thinking about
Okay,
those.
Well, listen, thanks so much for coming in today, and best of luck to you going
glad to
forward.
do.
And we'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.